Well, we're working on a 2004 Chevy Impala. Front and rear brakes. It's going to cover the front brakes, replacing the brake pads, as well as the rotors. We've got one or more rotors out around warped, so we're going to go ahead and replace them as well. Got all our parts off of eBay at a really nice price, so we went ahead and went 4 wheels, rotors, and brake pads. So let's get started. We pre-loosened the nuts, lug nuts, while it was on the ground, jacked it up, chocked the rear wheels, put stands under it so it wouldn't slip off, and we're going to go lug nuts 3/4 inch, or close enough anyway. Stand up. Alright, so begin by removing the calipers. On the back caliper bracket, there's two 15mm bolts that are always nice and snug. Takes a little bit of work to get them off and loose. That was a little bit more than the others. Because that was a little more, we're going to get our brake upper bar, which will give us some room to work, a little more leverage. There we go. As you get the bolts loose, it's a good time to get a long screwdriver. Wedge that long screwdriver right in here between the brake pad and the rotor, and give yourself a little bit of relief on this piston. So with luck, slightly compress the piston. Take out the alignment bolts and pins. And these brake pads have small dimples in the back, so they can be difficult to get over this back brake pad. That one, not so much. So now we're going to compress our brake cylinder back in. What we're going to use is this rear pad. We're going to set it up here into the caliper. O'Reilly's, AutoZone, places like that. This thing costs less than 10 bucks. You can use a C-clamp if you'd like. I used a C-clamp for many years. Also had C-clamp slip off while I was trying to compress the piston back in. When you go to compress the piston in, I take the cap off the master cylinder so the fluid can back into the master cylinder, but do it kind of slowly. Otherwise you can squirt fluid out of your master cylinder, make a mess on the ground, which we have done. You doing okay up there?
Yeah.
Also, you can feel how difficult this is to go in or not, and it will tend to tell you if you might have a sticking caliper. This one's fairly snug, but it's going back in. Fluid's going up into the master cylinder. So once it's fully compressed, then you're ready to move on to the next thing. You'll know when it's compressed, it'll lock up on you like that. So back this back out. Take out this old brake pad. If you'll notice, the back brake pads have got, well, I call it a telltale, but it's a little chatter guard. And whenever the brake pad wears down far enough that the chatter guard can hit the rotor start making some pretty good racket. And then you'll know that your pads are worn down. It's time to replace them. So I'm going to take a wire tie, and I'm going to wire tie this caliper up out of the way so that we can get onto the rotor. Okay, now also on the back there are two 15s, one at the top and the bottom, that hold the caliper on. They can be quite tight. So again, we're using a breaker bar to loosen them up. And once we get them loose, we'll use our ratchet to finish it. These guys can be quite difficult to get off sometimes. The other side, the bottom one, was pretty challenging. Looks like it's going to be challenging on this side as well. So when we get these out, we'll put all WD-40 on them before we try to go back in with them. So there's one right there. A lot of brake jobs is about getting in a position you can be comfortable in. Okay, second bolt is out. So, caliper just comes off like so. Always check your orientation, make sure you know which way it's going back on. Let me take this front, I didn't take this front brake pad out, but there you go. I'll set it down like that so I know I can bring it right back up. Rotor, just that easy. Alright, so the new rotor goes on just as simply as the other one came off. It is not keyed in any way. It can go on in one of 5 orientations. For now, you're welcome to do it. Easy way to manage it for now is just to run a bolt up on there, one of your lug nuts. Just hold it in place so it doesn't wiggle around while you're trying to put your caliper on there. So we're gonna, you can't see it maybe, but we're gonna screw a little WD-40 under our bolts. I put a little on the caliper threads on the last wheel. Probably not a good idea. Tended to want to get oil onto the brake rotor surface, so let's don't do that this time. So caliper goes on the way it came off. The bolt goes through the hub into the caliper. Again, everything so far has been 15 millimeter. Kind of nice. It's almost a one-tool wonder on these front brakes at least. There we go. We got those started. Now we'll go back to our ratchet. Always check your directions. You are working backwards here. It can be confusing. Don't tighten the top one until you get the bottom one in. Make sure your alignment's right. Everything's good. WD-40 is our friend. Helps these bolts out a lot. Okay. Now to get these pretty snug, I'm going to put on this breaker bar. You're welcome to look up the torque specs if you'd like. We go to just right. That's what we use. There's one. And then the second one. There we go. So the caliper's back on. Now time for some brake shoes. Like we said earlier when we took them off, here's the tab on the rear brake shoe. So we know that goes in the back. Also, shape tells you exactly which orientation goes into. Okay. And again, there's tabs here, indents here and here, tabs here and here. Just make sure the tabs go into the indents, and you're good. There you go. And then caliper. And get our pliers here, cut our wire tie, and get the caliper back. Now, because we've compressed the caliper, or the piston in the caliper rather, hopefully this will fall right on there just like that. And then we'll take our 2 bolts. I didn't mention it, but the top bolt has got this black material on it, slightly different diameters. So if they're different like they are with this one, watch, pay attention when you take them off. Now there's a rubber boot, which I can't show you very well. It covers up this bolt, rubber boot right here. Always want to make sure that rubber boot lines up. You don't kink that rubber boot. So that alignment pin's in. Straighten up the rubber boot on the bottom. Push the alignment pin in. Get both pins all the way in. Make sure everything's lined up before you start trying to tighten these up. And basically that's the whole job. Put the tire back on once you get this done. Remember, before you take off in your vehicle with great confidence after a brake job, always test your brakes. First thing you're gonna do is you're gonna pump your brakes, and it's gonna set that caliper piston back so that you have a snug fit. And then as you pump your brakes a few times, it'll just firm it up. Always do your first stop at a low speed, 5-10 miles an hour. Do a second stop at medium speed. Don't just start trusting things right off the bat. Brakes are important. And in particularly with today's cars, front brakes are most important. Your front braking system carries the burden, lion's share of the burden. So particularly when you're messing with front brakes, be sure you test them well. It's true on all brakes, but maybe it's a little more urgent on the front brakes. So, socket got stuck. We'll get that off of there. There we go. All right, so not going to bore you with the front wheel. Front brakes, 2004 Chevy Impala.